Hello, my name is Elizabeth Spitznas, and today I will be presenting a ceremonial speech that recognizes the achievements of Benjamin L. Hooks. So I'm sure that all of the Memphians here have driven by the Benjamin L. Hooks Library at some point in their lives. Have you ever wondered about the person behind the name Benjamin L. Hooks? His story is quite fascinating, and has also been an inspiration for many men and women. So my thesis is that Benjamin L. Hooks was an African-American man who lived throughout the civil rights movement and attained many accomplishments in aiding and ending segregation. I have pursued much research on this topic and believe I have an adequate understanding on this topic. And I will discuss the entirety of Benjamin Hooks' life, which is from 1925 through 2010, and everything he accomplished in that time. So to begin with, Benjamin Lawson Hooks was born on January 31st, 1925, and he experienced many hardships in his youth due to racism. His grandmother was the second Black woman in the United States to graduate from college, so he knew how important it was to receive an education, and he realized the struggles due to racism that he would have to go through to achieve what he wanted in life. During World War II, when he was only in his early 20s, Hooks was employed to guard Italian prisoners of war, and they were allowed to go to certain places that he was not, simply due to his race. Hooks aspired to go to law school, but when he applied to schools in Tennessee, none would accept him, so he had to attend law school in Chicago. When he received his degree, he worked hard as a lawyer to do what he could to break down segregation, and he confronted prejudice whenever he could. In 1956, he became an ordained minister, and in 1965, he was appointed to be a judge on the Shelby County Criminal Court, becoming the first Black criminal court judge in Tennessee history. In 1972, he moved to Washington, D.C., and he became the first Black appointee to the FCC. So by age 47, Benjamin Hooks had already accomplished more than most people do in their entire lives. He continued his work in contributing to end segregation, and by 1976, he was elected as executive director of the NAACP and contributed greatly to their cause. So by the 1970s, when he was elected, the membership in that group had declined, so Hooks was determined to increase their membership. He did this in several ways. In 1982, he did this by co-authoring an article which discussed the racial implication of the United States immigration policy, and he did this with Lapchick and Williams. In this article, they discussed the implications of the Reagan administration forcing the deportation of 5,000 Ethiopian refugees who were in the United States due to fear for their lives in their home country. Hooks goes on the record to state that this motion rings of national hypocrisy and international racism, and that he, Lapchick, and Williams, and other people in the NAACP wired to Reagan to urge him to reinstate the voluntary departure status for Ethiopian refugees, and that would offer them more protection. So in 1987, Hooks published another article in which he was the sole author. In this, he discusses the need for affirmative action, which is the practice of providing more aid to those belonging to groups that have been discriminated against in the past. Most notably, he mentions how the current climate, or the climate in 1987, seemed to believe that every gain obtained by members of minority groups would only occur at the expense of white males. He then states several instances in which the American judicial system upheld affirmative action, though, and the purpose of his article is to get the audience to see why affirmative action is important and vital for the United States, and kind of calling them out for racism as well. So in the 1970s and 80s, Benjamin Hooks accomplished a lot, and he continued his work on through his death in 2010. One way in this, after the 1970s and 1980s, was that in 1992, he retired from his position at the NAACP, yet he continued his work in social change, working hard to make a difference. He worked as an adjunct professor at the University of Memphis in the Political Science Department, and in 1996, he founded the Benjamin L. Hooks Institute for Social Change. The Hooks Institute has the goal of framing and solving community problems and addressing racial, social, and economic disparities by community engagement. A subset of the Hooks Institute is called the Hooks African American Male Initiative, or HAAMI, and it focuses specifically on the retention and graduation rates of African American males at the University of Memphis, and they do this by providing support in any way they can. In 2001, the Memphis Public Library's main branch was named in the honor of Benjamin L. Hooks. So he lived quite a life, and he accomplished a lot. So in conclusion, to summarize everything I just said, Benjamin L. Hooks contributed a lot to end segregation. When he was younger and he first became a lawyer, he immediately started confronting prejudice wherever he found it. And in the 1970s and 80s, he was the executive director for the NAACP, and this platform allowed him to accomplish even more and draw even more attention to the problems in the United States. His legacy was defined by the awards he received, including an institute that he helped found and a library named in his honor. So Benjamin L. Hooks was an African-American man who lived throughout the civil rights movement and attained many accomplishments in aiding and ending segregation. If we can learn anything from Benjamin Hooks' life, it is to work for what you believe in and never give up in the face of adversity.